Hezbollah has long sought access to the international financial system in order to move its terrorist funds and to launder the profits from its involvement in illegal activity. Hezbollah is both a full-fledged terrorist organization and an enterprise that increasingly turns to crime to finance itself.
To be clear, DEA investigations have shown that Hezbollah is laundering drug money through these financial institutions. In the view and the opinions of members of the Counter-Narco-Terrorism Operations Center, Hezbollah is operating like a major drug cartel.
Hezbollah is a very dangerous terrorist organization, is turning more and more to criminal activity to fund itself as its historic sources of revenue have become more tenuous.
A bombshell report by Politico alleging the Obama administration interfered with a federal investigation into how Iran-backed terror group Hezbollah turned profits on illegal drugs and weapons trafficking. According to the report, the previous administration didn't want anything to get in the way of a nuclear deal with Tehran.
I found it very, very odd that in our backyards all over America, they were sending used cars back into West Africa to sell, and the profits of these used cars and all this drug trafficking money was going back to support Hezbollah at the tune of $200 million a month in businesses throughout our country. So I found it kind of odd that we didn't have a unity of effort to actually shut it down. I found it odd that we didn't have leadership in the administration that would actually enforce and hold people accountable to bring the agencies together to ensure that we can protect the American public. Well, in this particular case, we briefed Eric Holder. He was very alarmed by the findings of this particular investigation and the magnitude of money and drugs that were moving around the world. So Eric Holder was pretty, serious about having follow-up meetings with national security team members, and the briefing never happened. So it was very strange for me sitting there listening to the Attorney General of the United States directing his people to have a meeting to get more information from the DEA and our interagency partners about this global trade-based money laundering scheme, and they weren't interested. It never happened. I can't explain it.
In the meantime, the administration was also working on a deal with Iran over its nukes. They didn't want to go heavy on Hezbollah because they wanted to get that nuke deal done.
From my perspective, if you have this magnitude of money and drugs moving through our country and the banks in our country, that should have been something that our government enforced full accountability on all the agencies to work together and shut it down. Terrorists are turning to criminal networks for their funding. State sponsorship is down. They need funding to operate. They need funding to corrupt government officials. Drug trafficking and other criminal activity around the world is helping to generate hundreds of millions of dollars around the world. The terrorists are taking advantage of this opportunity.
Financially.
Financially, yes. They need the money to operate.
حزب الله إنه تنظيم طائفي مسلح نشأ وأعلن بيعته منذ تأسيسه لولاية الفقيه في إيران. ومع توالي السنوات انطلقت من جنوب لبنان من سوريا إلى العراق. هذا التوسع يعني أنه أصبح بحسن نصر الله.
نحن يا خيي على راس السطح.
هذا التمويل المستمر منذ النشأة يبدو أنه لم يعد يكفي اليوم مقابل ظل العقوبات المفروضة على طهران، فطالتها اتهامات بإنشاء شبكات في دول عدة.
I think it's fair to say that there is a good amount of profit that Lebanese Hezbollah makes off of illicit trafficking writ large on at least the order of tens of millions, and much of it is funneled through the money laundering system and fuels their operations.
Colombians turn to the Americans in about 2005 and say, we have been conducting intercepts, phone intercepts, of drug traffickers. And we have hundreds of hours of taped conversation in Arabic on the phone lines that we're trying to intercept for drug traffickers. And we have no idea what's going on, right? I mean, understandably, it's the Colombians monitoring Colombian cartels. The last thing they would expect is that they need a whole Arabic language analysis department. So they turn to the DEA. The DEA has a senior Arabic-speaking agent.
And we didn't really know what they were doing until one of our undercover agents, who was actually born in Lebanon, who spoke the language, who listened to the calls recognized that this was really a big global organization. He recognized that there was many connections in Lebanon, connections to Hezbollah, and we started really looking at it a little differently.
He realizes that these are not Colombians who've learned Arabic. These are Lebanese, and they're linked to Hezbollah. And that's how the connection comes out. And that's the reason why Project Cassandra which starts really like this, and then it lasts almost a decade.
We had like lots of cocaine shipments going around the world to the Mexican cartels, to Europe, to Africa, and we had a group of Lebanese nationals that were operating with the Colombians in South America with one of these cartels, La Oficina de El Envengado, which is a Medellin-based cartel that's been involved. Francisco Flores was the leader of the cartel and moving lots of money around the world and lots of cocaine. So we started seeing a lot of Lebanese involved. We really didn't know at the time exactly what they were doing.
هذه الخريطة الكاملة التي رسمها المحققون تبدأ في فنزويلا وبوليفيا وكولومبيا والبرازيل والباراغواي والمكسيك وبنما في أمريكا اللاتينية وأخرى في إفريقيا منها بنين وغانا وتوغو.
Drugs go out of Latin America, and the same networks and commercial cargo planes bringing merchandise in one direction, they can bring weapons in the other. They can, be used through these complex networks across the globe to finance and support and create profit from all sorts of activities. So in Africa, it may be human trafficking or the illicit wildlife trafficking, illegal logging of timber. In Latin America is mainly cocaine, but it's also other things.
والبرازيل.
They came mostly in the 70s and 80s. And so clearly their distance, culturally speaking, their ability to maintain the connection with the motherland, it was different than the previous waves of immigration. The Shia maintained the connection very strongly. And as Hezbollah rose in Lebanon and saw this diaspora establishing itself in Latin America, it sought to keep the contact and potentially also, where it was possible, the control.
The Director of National Intelligence and the Deputy Director of National Intelligence making statements about how Hezbollah was moving in their operations all over Latin America in the tri-border region, with Paraguay and Argentina and Brazil, and seeing the massive worldwide cocaine movements and illicit activities, it really became very alarming. So the DEA put together a very comprehensive strategy at our Counter-Narco-Terrorism Operations Center in the Special Operations Division to study and look at this particular aspect, very concerning aspect of the business affairs component of Hezbollah.
One of them, it involves somebody named Nader Mohammed Farhat. Farhat is a gentleman of Lebanese Shia descent who lives in the tri-border area, is married to a Chinese citizen. They both have Brazilian passports, live in Brazil, but work in Paraguay, where she owns a money exchange house, which he runs. And Nader was arrested in May of 2018 at the exchange house because on allegations of laundering money, millions of dollars for drug cartels. Anyone in the know will say that he is a Hezbollah operative.
سعى بكثير لحزب الله في البرازيل والمثلث الحدودي، إذ توضح تحقيقات الشرطة البرازيلية علاقة مصالح مشتركة بدأت عام 2006 بين شبكات ميليشيا حزب الله في المنطقة ومنظمة PCC الإجرامية في البرازيل. عادت إلى البلد الأصلي الذي انطلقت منه وبسببه، كولومبيا. هناك أدت التحقيقات إلى كشف تعرض محققو كاساندرا إلى قضية متداخلة بين كولومبيا وفنزويلا، وهي قضية الفنزويلي من أصول سورية وليد مقلد والضابط الفنزويلي أوغو كارباخال.
We recognized that Hezbollah was moving lots of people and lots of resources into Latin America, and specifically Venezuela. And we also had lots of intelligence about some of the key operatives in Venezuela, like Walid Makhled, General Carvajal, who were kind of the leaders of this cartel in Venezuela that were moving multi-ton shipments of cocaine and using Hezbollah operatives in Venezuela to help in different aspects of the organization. We arrested Walid Makhled in Colombia pursuant to U.S. laws, rule of law. We arrested Carvajal in Aruba pursuant to the U.S. arrest warrant. And we were hopeful that we'd get those two as well back into America, because even like Walid Makhled, he was talking openly in the Colombian press how he was paying military and government officials $1 million a month to do his operation.
قادت التحقيقات مع مقلد وكارباخال إلى شخصية رفيعة في نظام الحكم في فنزويلا.
It wasn't obviously only Hezbollah, it was the cartels, it was the Venezuelan government. Some of the indictments that came out of those investigations went after stalwarts of the Chavez and the Maduro regimes. The stalwarts of the regime who were handling the drug trafficking were linked to Hezbollah, had relations with Hezbollah.
Ahmad Juma actually was also involved with picking up multi-millions of dollars in Mexico, transporting the bulk proceeds back to Colombia to launder the money. He was also indicted in the Eastern District of Virginia here in America. So basically, these guys had established themselves as these really, really unbelievable transnational organized criminals, moving, lots of cocaine, moving lots of money, and their ultimate goal was to actually help support Hezbollah's worldwide campaign. And this was why they set it up.
A murderous cartel that sends tons of cocaine to the U.S. each year. A Middle East terrorist group that's killed more Americans than any other except Al-Qaeda. Now U.S. officials establish a connection between them. This man. A new indictment alleges Ayman Juma has coordinated the smuggling of at least 90 tons of cocaine to the U.S. and laundered hundreds of millions of dollars for drug gangs in Latin America, often working with the Zetas, the Mexican cartel fighting a bloody drug war along the U.S. border. U.S. officials say Juma laundered as much as $200 million a month. A key beneficiary of his operations, the Lebanon-based terrorist group Hezbollah. Hezbollah is part of the government in Lebanon, but also has a history of bloody terror attacks against American interests dating back to the bombing of the U.S. Embassy in 1983.
Juma was laundering on average $200 million of cocaine revenue every month, and that his scheme was costing a 20% commission to the cartel, which is not unreasonable, right? They don't pay taxes on the revenue, so 80% still remains. But the point is that when you look at it and you realize that this is not something that is the whole story, but it is just one network, and you count $40 million a month is the 20% commission, it means almost $500 million a year. It gives you a sense of the size of this operation.
مخدرات المكسيكي لوس زيتوس وهو أهم منظمة إجرامية في أمريكا الوسطى.
Tabaja, global terrorist, okay, who actually set up this whole operation to generate funds to provide funding to help Hezbollah. Hezbollah's funding was critical because they needed monies to buy rockets, they needed monies to buy explosives, they need money to corrupt government officials, they need money for logistics, travel, everything else.
عبد الله صفي الدين. عبد الله صفي الدين هو ابن خالة زعيم حزب الله حسن نصر الله.
Safi al-Din is one of the top money guys for Hezbollah, right? With the business relationship and the family relationship with the leader of Hezbollah and his brother's role in Hezbollah, he was one of their trusted confidants who was a global business guy, okay, operating with his partner, okay, Tabaja, also working very closely with Mohammed Bazi in Gambia. They had lots of businesses making multi-billions of dollars around the world, trade-based laundering, just involved with all kinds of criminal activities. And again, from our perspective in the DEA, one of the most critical roles was he's the guy that set up the relationships in the bank in Lebanon. Without that relationship, then we wouldn't have had this trade-based scheme, which generated billions of dollars for the terrorist organization. And so Abdallah Safi al-Din, okay, as the leader of the business affairs component, that's their job. Generate monies. Get the monies back to support Hezbollah's terrorist agenda. And we were able to put the Lebanese Canadian bank on the stage with the spotlights on around the world that they were involved with international money laundering. So we basically cut off their relationships with other banks and other financial institutions to be able to hurt their ability to operate and to fund Hezbollah.
بالله لبنان ومؤسساته للتحايل على العقوبات ضد إيران، لكننا لم نكتفي بتلك التقارير.
You will get a clearance. Nobody will know that you are.
No, we do the same thing with drugs, the same things for drugs.
You put full airplane, you go land there, you will take them for the first time deal. They will not give you a deposit. You know, they will not pay a deposit for the first time. On side, they pay. If you want, they can your money from my house.
Right.
You know, in cash. And I will tell you what I can do for you in Lebanon later. Look, I'll be very transparent.
Please, now's the time to.
We are going to sell weapons for the Iranian. If you want, if you put, for example, my people will send an expert guy for this kind of things wherever you want. If you want, you can come to Lebanon and the airport. You don't come inside. Inside the airport, they are too much powerful. So they meet you in the airport with the expert to discuss price, quality, specs, everything. If you want, they can travel to Cyprus. It's good for them, you know, so they can buy any quantity, anything, Iran. So one option, you can send an airplane full of things. They will let you land without knowing anybody knowing. They will send you a clearance. They are professionals there.
Flying right into Beirut, Lebanon, and there were Hezbollah militants at the airport with long guns, actually, watching this activity and actually, doing the security to get the money into the exchange houses. Once the money got into the exchange houses, then they routed it from the exchange houses into the Lebanese Canadian bank, as an example.
Nondescript used car dealerships and export companies in the U.S. Maybe not the first places you'd look for connections to terrorism. U.S. law enforcement officials say about 30 American companies are avenues for hundreds of millions of dollars funneled to Hezbollah, a group that's attacked American targets for decades. Cocaine was shipped from South America to Africa, sold in Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. The cash was then brought to Beirut and placed in money exchange houses. Then, through the Lebanese Canadian bank, the money was sent to buy used cars from companies in the U.S. The cars were sent to Africa for resale. Much of those profits, according to officials, went to Hezbollah. It was all part of a drug and money laundering network U.S. officials say was spearheaded by a Lebanese national named Ayman Juma, now under indictment in America. The new complaint seeks forfeiture of more than $480 million, including all the assets from the U.S.-based companies. Experts say Hezbollah is relying more and more on criminal enterprises for its funding.
نطاق واسع من النشاطات الإجرامية مارستها ميليشيا حزب الله وشبكاتها والعصابات الشريكة لها، اتجار بالمخدرات والأسلحة، وتزوير لعملات نقدية، وتهريب سلاح، وابتزاز، وخطف، وغيرها الكثير من الأعمال التي يدفع ثمنها الأبرياء. أعمال أصبحت موثقة بقرائن وأدلة تدين حزب الله، وقد تم اعتقال أشخاص وضبط مؤسسات. عبد الله صفي الدين الرجل الأول فيها، وأدهم طباجة رجل المال، وأيمن جمعة رجل العمل الميداني، وجميعهم مرتبطون بوحدة العمليات الخارجية في ميليشيا حزب الله.
لأننا في هذا الزمن في زمن تتحكم فيه شريعة الغاب، الذي يبقى ويستمر هو القوي.
As disturbing as the connection is between the drug cartels and Hezbollah, U.S. law enforcement officials tell us Ayman Juma is still out there working those connections.
We can't investigate terrorism in a cocoon, especially going after sophisticated transnational groups like Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, and these other groups. We must shut down funding streams from a variety of crimes. It's not just drug trafficking. You guys know it's cybercrime, it's alien smuggling, it's diamond smuggling. All right, so there must be a true team effort between law enforcement and the intelligence community. Hezbollah is one of the worst terrorist organizations in the world, and Project Cassandra outlines some really disturbing trends. Terrorists are increasingly turning to crime and criminal networks for their funding. We see how Hezbollah is operating like a worldwide drug cartel, moving millions of dollars and tons of cocaine all over the world. Unfortunately, most of the time when criminal cases connect to terror investigations, we lose cooperation right here in our backyards.